Hey loves, it's me, Amber. We're going to do something new on Sundays. It's going to be called Scripture Sundays. Now, I used to do Bible study and it was really hard to keep up with that, doing it live. I went from an hour to 30 minutes. So these are going to be only 10 minutes long. They're going to be nice, sweet, and short, okay? And they are going to be led by Spirit as well. So a lot of people are kind of growing weary on their journey, and in life, sometimes things just seem blocked, or it's like every option feels exhausted, right? So today's little scripture Sunday is going to be based off the scripture line Isaiah 43:19. Okay, it says, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." Okay, this is when we feel like every option's been exhausted and we are just tempted to kind of give up. We go into despair, like, I'm just done, God. I don't have nothing left to give. But we're not giving up, right? The Bible is filled with so many stories of one powerful truth. And this powerful truth is this: God will make a way when there seems to be no way, okay? He's done it before. He'll do it again. This is a truth. This is a truth that you need to remind yourself. When you get into those moments where you're like, I'm done. I ain't got nothing left to give, God. Time to give up. Nope. You remind yourself, God has done it before. He will do it again. He is faithful. My God, I serve a God who specializes in making way where there seems to be no way. That's his specialty. He always comes over impossible odds. He is the conqueror of impossible odds. And so that's what you got to remind yourself, okay? That he is sovereign and that he is faithful to his promises. He always has been. And the way that we can do that is not only remind ourselves of circumstances in our lives where God actually has followed through and fulfilled his promises, but also we can look back on the stories in scripture and use those stories to bring us hope and bring us encouragement and to push us through those times where we feel as though there is no way, that there's no way forward. No, God will make the way. One of the first ones I'm going to bring up, obviously, is Moses. Y'all know. Okay, Exodus 14. Okay, 14. In Exodus 14, Moses and the Israelites come to the Red Sea. Okay, imagine being Moses, right? You did every command God has told you to do, man. You had done some stuff, right? Now you're at the point where you literally have all hundreds of Israelites that have followed you. Now you come to basically what seems like a dead end. You come to the end of the land and there is a gigantic sea in front of you, and you got Pharaoh's freaking army behind you, and you're like, got the people crying out in fear that the Pharaoh's coming, and you're like, what in the heck? Oh my goodness, there is no way. This is a dead end. This is it. We're done for. Boom. God says, put the staff in the sea. What? And he does, and God parts that sea, doesn't he? He makes a pathway where there wasn't a pathway. That's the most vivid way I can describe how God will make a way when it seems like no way, okay? And when the enemy surrounds you, you think like there's no other way, you're going to give up. Remember, God can part the sea in your life, okay? At any moment, any time, and he will claim that you'll be able to claim your victory, okay? Another one is Joseph, okay? Joseph, I wouldn't want to be Joseph. Poor Joseph. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, by his family, okay? Joseph literally was sold into slavery. Joseph ends up being betrayed, ended up into slavery, ends up being in prison, and he ain't in for a minute, okay? He's in it for some years, okay? And Joseph is in the darkest place. Like, this is the darkest moment of his life. Like, oh my God, like, what is happening, right? But his story reminds us that God is always working things out in our favor. He's behind the scenes pulling strings and putting things together, and that God never uses our suffering never allows us to suffer without using it. Our suffering, our experiences are always turned for good, and they're always aimed for us and our God-given purpose, why he created us. So basically, when you feel hopeless, when you feel like things are fair. You need to remind yourself God has a plan, and the plan is greater than what you could perceive right now, and that He is moving in the background. You just can't see it yet. That everything is still working out for your highest good. Because let me tell you something. Joseph over there in prison in despair, like, what in the heck? I just got betrayed by my family, got sold into slavery, da 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 da. Boom. What does God do? He goes from prison to second in command in Egypt. He goes from prison to a palace, okay? God can raise up anybody, anytime, any minute. Your appointed time will come. God will see you on top of mountains, okay? But it's about His timing. So you need to remind yourself, even when things seem like so, hopeless, God has a plan. You just can't see it all the way, okay? Another one is a really good one for like whenever you feel lack, whether it's financial, spiritual, emotional. This is like when you're feeling lack, it's about for you to trust that God's going to provide. Because in 1 Kings 17, you got the widow of Zarephath, right? And Elijah shows up. The prophet Elijah shows up. Now, the widow of Zarephath is her and her son, and they ain't got nothing. 444. They literally she only had a little bit of flour and a little bit of oil, and it's like we're gonna starve to death. And when Elijah comes, he basically like, don't be afraid. Use the flour you have and oil you have, and make him bread. Basically feed him. And if you feed me, God will provide for you. Your stuff will never run dry. And as much as that seems not to make sense, she obeys. She obeys, and she takes all that she has, basically, and puts it in God's hands. She makes him a meal and feeds him with that last bit of flour and oil she has. And what happens? It refills. It refills. It never runs dry. I mean, same thing when Jesus was doing His sermon. He only had that little bit of fish and bread, okay? And all of a sudden, they had all this fish and all this bread, because the God you serve is a God who multiplies. If you place what you have in God's hands, He is going to multiply it. He is faithful to multiplying it. So you need to remind yourself, when you're in lack, give it to God. Whatever you have left, give your last bit to God. He will multiply it. And that is a truth. Another one I think is real funny. This one makes me laugh all the time, because this is the unconventional guy. Sometimes we get obstacles in our life that just seem insurmountable. Like, there ain't no way. Okay, one of the stories is the walls of Jericho. Okay, this one makes no sense. This is one I love, because sometimes God be telling us to do stuff. He's like, yeah, God, what sense that make, right? That's what I'm telling you. That's what these Israelites was thinking up in Jericho. Okay, because God says march around the city. They at war, first of all. And He's like, march around the city for 6 days. On 7th day, I want you to shout. What? How we gonna win the war? What? We're not even fighting. How we gonna win the war? You want us to just march around the city? But this shows you, if you obey God, you will have victory. If you do what God says, He will always lead you to win. Okay? So they do it. They march around the city for 6 days, and then they shout on the 7th day. Boom, the walls of Jericho come flying down. They come crumbling down, and they claim victory. The Israelites end up claiming victory. I mean, this is the same thing with Paul and Silas, okay? Paul and Silas, they was over there getting in prison for, preaching the gospel and stuff, and they was all up in chains. But despite the fact that they was in prison, they still worship and pray God. They stayed faithful to God. They stayed in prayer. As long as you stay in prayer, stay in prayer, stay in prayer. What happened at midnight? Boom, God made an earthquake. Psh, this earthquake comes down, and it busts open the prison doors. Not only did Paul and Silas get free, okay, so did everybody else that was in prison in that prison. God will open doors. He will open doors that you think can never be opened. He will open them. So this is a great reminder for all of you, when you feel trapped, you feel empty, you feel overwhelmed, or you feel like there is no way, that God is the Waymaker. He's still the Waymaker. Isaiah 43:19 still says, I will make a way in the wilderness and the rivers in the desert. God's power knows no limit, and His timing is perfect. And you need to remind yourself of this. When you feel the way you feel, when you feel discouraged, when you feel like there's no way, remind yourself of the stories that God is faithful. All you got to do is keep praying, trusting, and following in obedience, walking with Him, and He will make a way.